Hello again, everyone. So, are you excited? I am, because in this section, we're going to try to understand the components and their properties. Now, we've learned to work with styles and templates in the last few lessons. So, in this lesson, I really want to get into that selector in the TS file. Now, we know that the selector in this component decorator is what we use in other component files to indicate this component. And this selector must be unique, because if there are more than one selector, of course, with the same name, you're going to get some problems. Now, it might be a little of a challenge to understand which feature is which component, so you just got to stay sharp, all right? And pay attention to this. I'll make sure that you do. Now, there's one more thing that we need to know about using selector before we get into the nitty-gritty. We already talked about this while, talking about selector, introducing selector. Up until now, we've used selector just like an element. And when we wanted to call our component, we wrote the selector definition like this. However, do you remember that I mentioned that this has different definitions and different writing? So I'll show you by examining this in a little more detail. So hopefully you can see this now, defining the selector as an element, and I've called it in other places like that. And now here I come and put in a dot in front of the selector definition. I'm going to save the change, and I get an error when I look at the browser. That's our trouble, because Angular no longer knows which component is what. Actually, we defined the selector as a class, but we used it as an element. So if we call it as a class in a div like this, where I called it, the problem will disappear, because now we'll use it as a class. All right, so another definition can be an attribute definition. So I'll define this in square brackets, where we define a selector, and then we will use it as an attribute in the place that we were just using it. So in other words, using the selector as ID is a bit of a problem, because Angular might not be able to recognize it. So just know, this is how they're defined. So that is a general description for an element, and this is the way we use it. However, I wanted you to be able to see what happens when you encounter it in different places. And the selector is certainly one of the essential properties that identifies each component uniquely. So just keep in mind that we have to use selectors very carefully, and most of the time they're used as elements. But also I wanted to share this information so that you can figure that out when you're using selectors. All right, so I'll see you in the next lesson.